Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have two wonderful guests on. So we have the special events team from the Houston Grand Opera. So we've got Allison Reeves, the director of special events, and Katherine Cunningham, the associate director of special events. And the Houston Grand Opera puts on one of the very, very best produced galas, I think, in Texas every year in the Opera Ball. And the Opera Ball 2025 is coming up. And, I am so excited to chat with these folks because they come up with the greatest themes. They incorporate whatever performances they may have going off and into their events. So they're really going to be a wonderful wealth of knowledge for us to learn just so much about what it takes to put on a great event today. So with that, Allison, Katherine, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you both on as guests today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
We're
so much for
really
having
excited.
us.
We're excited. So, I just want to dive right on in here. So, Houston Grand Opera is one of the best, one of the very best operas in the world. So, Allison, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what the mission of the Houston Grand Opera is.
Sure. HGO's mission really is about enriching our community through the art of opera. And that's by creating, curating, exploring, and doing everything through these experiences around the human voice. And so all we're trying to do is really bring world-class art to the stage and give everyone the exposure and the experience for it.
That's fantastic. And, Houston is a world-class city for the arts. And, opera is one of those things that there's very few in the world that kind of, are up there, with the company of the Houston Grand Opera. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about each of you because I know that both of you have really you've had a really good array of professional experiences. So I always like to find out how guests got to an organization, especially folks like the two of you who, have a really impressive career, long before you even got to the Houston Grand Opera. So, Katherine, I'd like to start with you and kind of hear how your path there, and then, we'll learn about Allison's.
Sure. So my journey actually started in theater. I started my career working just across the street at the Alley Theater, and it was a wonderful experience. I was in their fundraising department, and I started there because I originally had wanted to start my own theater company. That was the goal. And fell in love with the fundraising side as I kind of tripped along and figured out what it is that I wanted to do. And special events came into the picture when I had a boss that really just didn't want to throw any kind of event or dinner. It was not her favorite thing. And I said, dinner, tickets to a show, how hard can it be? Um, and so it just kind of bloomed and blossomed from there. And I just truly, it was a trial and error, learn as you go, learn what works, learn what doesn't. And I learned that it was a really fun outlet to kind of express myself creatively and keep my creative juices flowing, as it were. And then coming over to the opera, I'd always kind of seen it as the shining beacon on the hill and had wanted to be a part of that team forever and ever. And just about a year ago, an opportunity kind of opened up for me to jump in, and I took it and ran with it. And we are here today. And I'm so thrilled to be a part of the HGO team and a part of, the elite of the events world, which is mind-boggling.
Well, I love hearing your journey and one that literally you worked right across the street. So like you saw it every day and it was like what I kind of like is you almost manifested that. You were like, one day I'm going to work for this organization because it's so
Exactly.
world class and so amazing. And there you are. And you didn't even have to ask for directions for the interview. So how great is that? You knew exactly
Exactly.
where to go, right? Maybe once you got in the building, but
100%. It is a maze inside of the Wortham for sure. But
Indeed.
Absolutely. Now, Allison, I want to hear about, your journey as well as to how you got there. Because I know you've also, I believe you also were a part of the Dallas Opera too in the past, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Oh, so I interned in college actually at the Dallas Opera. And
Oh.
so I am from Houston, like Catherine as well. And my mom is the children's chorus director for Houston Grand Opera. And I started there. That was my journey with Houston Grand Opera from grade when I was in my first opera. And I then was in the high school voice studio here at HGO, and I pursued opera as a career. So I went to school in Dallas. I went to SMU. And I really wanted to be an opera singer. And it was not until my senior year that I decided maybe I don't want to audition for the rest of my life and change course. So my parents were like, "Oh, that's great. What do you want to do?" It's like, I have no idea. So that's kind of how that happened. And I interned with the Dallas Opera while I was in Dallas. I moved back to Houston and I worked in executive search for many years. And similarly to Catherine, too, I started to do events on the corporate side because nobody really wanted to do that. And I was dubbed the creative person at the company. And so it was a moment where I was able to express like my creative side with these fancy dinners and big parties on the corporate side for the company. And then the position became open at the opera a couple years ago. And I thought, oh, this is the perfect marriage of my skill set. Like, I love the opera and I would love to get back to it. And it's getting to do all of these events. So that's kind of how that happened for me.
Okay, so I'm really fascinated here by your backgrounds and how you fuse that together. So, Allison, you having a corporate background with events, and Catherine, you having a nonprofit background. So, how do Allison, I'd like for you to start with this, but kind of what are the differences between hosting a corporate event versus hosting a nonprofit event? Because I think, people think they're all one and the same, and there's very different things that happen at each one.
Absolutely. Budget, I would say, is the first biggest difference. I'm sure many corporates would hate to hear that, but they have a lot more money to play with when it comes to a lot of these events. And in the nonprofit sector, we're obviously trying to raise money. So we're a lot more strategic in where we are placing every dollar for the nonprofit events. Not to say that you don't watch your budget just as carefully in the corporate world, but you have a lot of wiggle room and what you're able to do with that. That is definitely the biggest thing I would say that's a huge difference. And then the planning aspect, how creative are you tying it to a very specific theme like we do? Or is it more just about the brand of the company and that each of those elements feel like you walk in and you can see all of the branding and the logos and everything, and it's just a really nice event? Or if it's we're taking them out of their normal and giving them a really spectacular event that just feels like you've walked into another world, which I feel is like HGO events.
Absolutely. Catherine, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I mean, coming from only really doing nonprofit events, most of kind of what I've seen is, again, speaking to kind of the mission, everything that I've ever done or executed, I've always kind of had this tunnel vision of, does it serve the mission? Does it serve the brand? Does it serve our donors? Um, because there may be a really lovely theme or something that we think is awesome, but if our chair absolutely is like, nope, so we've got to shift and pivot. Um, and that's kind of the beauty of it. It keeps you on your toes. But as Allison said, every dollar counts. We watch our budget a little bit more than a corporate definitely would. But it's all in service to the ultimate goal of making the mission front and center for people.
So while we're talking about mission, I'm really, and I want to understand where your passion from the arts comes from, because I know for both of you, it probably comes from a really young age, and Catherine, I want you to start here, but
Yeah.
talk a little bit about, because you obviously have a passion for the performing arts very broadly, and opera is obviously a component with that, with you wanting to start a theater company. So talk about, where your love for the arts, originated.
Oh, Love from How It's originated. I say music was had a place in my household since I can possibly remember. My dad sang and played the trombone. My mom played the flute. Lots of music going on. The stuff that I remember is classical music. My dad doesn't listen to a lick of pop or rock at all. And then my mom raised me on 80s pop music, so it was a weird blend. But I got put in where my love of music came from was that, and love of the arts. I got put into the Houston Children's Chorus in fourth grade and have been a singer in choirs and been involved in every possible art extracurricular. You gave me a piece of paper as a kid and I would like start to scribble all over it. I made mixtures in the kitchen with all of the condiments, which really thrilled my parents one evening. Um, but it just has always been this constant presence that has been nurtured. No matter what it is that I wanted to do, that was always a absolutely, we will find a way to make sure that you can do whatever the art thing is that you wanted to do. And so that's always just been a center and a focal point, and it's always been a something that I knew was going to be a part of my life lifelong, just because it's been ingrained in me since day one, really. It was never something that I was like, I veered away from it for about 3 or so years and really didn't have any touch with the arts world at all, and kind of had a moment where I said, these aren't my people. This isn't what I want to be doing. I need to have this influence in my life for me. And yeah, that's to come back to your original question. It's just that it was there for me from day one. And that's why it's been such a lovely place in my whole life and where I've wanted to stay.
Well, I think it's awesome that you had parents that encouraged you and that you had one parent that could have cared less about what was going on in pop culture at the moment. That gave you kind
Oh
of a
yeah.
really informed view of, music and all that. And Allison, I want to hear, where you're, because the amount of training that goes in for someone who wants to pursue opera, you clearly had to have loved it as a child. So I'd love to hear, initially how you got, how initially you kind of started, singing and kind of where that all came from originally and how, you're still involved with the opera as an adult. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little odd, I'll say. Whenever I tell anyone about my history with HGO, they're like, wow, you literally grew up at the stage door. And it's completely true. So, my father, like Catherine's, is also a musician. We put this together the other day. It's really funny. Both of our dads play the trombone. And so we were like, go figure. But my dad, he plays in the ballet orchestra here, the Houston Ballet, and he played with the Houston Grand Opera Orchestra for, I think, 2 decades. And so I grew up in a very musical house, a very loud house. And my mom had a lot of music students come through and she taught voice lessons as well. So I saw a lot of these teenagers coming in and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, look what they're doing. And they're getting to have these one-on-one lessons with my mom. And so I started in the choir for HGO, the children's chorus, and I was only able to do 3 shows because I got too tall. And then I didn't look like a kid anymore. So that was a really, really sad day. Mom actually telling me I didn't make the cut, and that was so heartbreaking. But she was like, "You're taller than I am now, so you can't be in the children's chorus."
Oh.
And so I grew up with it and I saw so many people doing things on stage. My younger brother also sang and he's a phenomenal pianist and he does nothing musical anymore. He works in finance now. And it was always around, like Catherine said too. And I just loved everything that happened at the opera because it's like all of the art forms in one. And so you have dance, you have singing, acting, the symphony, it's just all there. And you can't ask for more drama than what you're seeing on the stage. And so I just fell in love with it. And, there's like an opera out there for everyone. So I love taking my friends in high school and trying to expose them to different things. And, some of them they really liked. There were many they didn't, but it's always been fun. And I like taking people to find the opera that's going to be their hook. You don't have to like it all, but you're going to find that one and then you're going to be sold.
What opera's your hook?
Turandot every time.
Great.
Every time I'm bawling. I think it's so lush, it's beautiful. But I had never heard Verter, and we just did that 2 seasons ago. And I went back to hear it again. I have the recording now, and I just love listening to that. So, I mean, there's always something I'm going to learn because there's so many out there. And it's been really nice, honestly.
There are, and I love how you brought in that opera really does incorporate pretty much almost all the elements of performance. And I think that's what makes opera so unique and so special. And, one way that you all will often utilize your gala for is, you'll utilize whatever performances you may be having, incorporating themes around them. So the one thing that has always impressed me about, HGO's Opera Ball is just the devoted following of people that go year after year. It is a must attend for a lot of very prominent philanthropists and art patrons throughout Houston and sometimes even beyond. So, Allison, I'd love for you to start and then Catherine chime in. But what's your secret in creating a really devoted following for a signature fundraising event?
Ooh, I think it really has to do with a lot of our donor base, quite honestly. And it's not just on the events team, it's a lot of our philanthropy team because they have all these amazing connections with our donors. And we all start to see the ones that really care about events more than performances, too. And so zeroing in on them and making sure that they're aware and they know the dates, they are coming back year after year and they're having a great time. So it's not just us, but it's definitely a much bigger picture with everyone at the company. There are plenty of people that if Corey is going to extend an invitation, they are going to be right there because Corey's invited them to this fantastic event as her guest. You know, she's like, I don't want you to miss it. So, I think also the event really speaks for itself year after year. And people know that. So if you bring a guest to it, they're like, this is incredible. And I had no idea that you could turn the Wortham into this space. It feels completely different. And just the vibe and the energy that they experience, people say as they're leaving, I will be coming back next year. And so that happens time and time again, you know, with the old standbys and our new friends that we're welcoming.
Great answer. And Catherine, I'd love for you to chime in.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I think what keeps people coming back to HGO's Opera Ball is the fact that it's fun, but it's also one of the few events that has stayed this kind of top tier elegance level event that you just don't find in Houston. And like I sit here and I go, you love a theme, we love a chance to put on a costume, but there are so few opportunities, I think, for the city of Houston to like truly put on their finest, show up, show out, and have a great night on top of it. Um, and I also wrote down a little bit just so I could get it out of my brain. This is what I do. I just say the guest experience. Like we really, I think what makes it next level is think about the second that one of our donors or guests walks into that event, throughout the entire evening, we go, how can we make this an absolutely memorable night that you're going to be talking about for until the next one?
And then somehow you all top it every year. And that's actually a good segue
Oh yeah.
into the next question I have. And that is, you all are the events team, but any great event will also have a great COO. And you all, your COO that is part of your, we're going to call you three the Holy Trinity, is Richard Flowers, who is a legendary event producer and talk
Oh,
about fun and transforming spaces and, working with some of the very best party hosts in the world who are all about the guest experience, people like Becca Case and Thrash as an example. Talk a little bit about, and you've worked with him for many years. So what is the secret, and we'll start with Allison here. What's the secret to creating a really good relationship with an outside event planner? And I really want to hear this from you all because you all are an events team and how that helped you all do your job better.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first and foremost, we're so lucky that we have Richard Flowers in Houston, that we get to work with him, that he knows our space better than any vendor in town, and quite frankly, outside of town, because we've worked with many other vendors too. And we're just so lucky. He has this amazing vision of the space. You can go to him and say, we're thinking we might want to do this, or this theme. And he's like, oh, that's a terrible one. No, you would want to do this, and here's why. And he can help just execute a vision immediately and elevate something that you're like, I want to see it this way. And he just completely changes it in the best possible way for you. Now, ways that we're successful working together, I think it's really just communication and timelines. And the earlier that we get with the team, we're talking with them about what we're looking at doing, who is going to be chairing, because maybe they've already worked with this person and they have an idea of things they really like or don't like. And just letting them know, obviously, budgets, but timelines so that we have enough time to build out all of these really exciting visions and we can see things change, evolve over time. And that just gives us a lot of flexibility and freedom to be creative on both sides.
Wonderful
yeah.
answer.
Yeah, it's the constant conversations, watching the visions evolve. I think we have been talking with Richard for pretty much since summer, really, about Opera Ball and what our vision and what the theme can move and turn into. And then, okay, we get a chairperson. So how does that taste play into it? It's also really lovely when we're working with Richard that again, as Allison mentioned, he knows our space. He also knows our audience and knows what our donor base really likes to see or doesn't. And he's got that simple eye to say, maybe we need to reel it back, or maybe we need to really, push people and really try and expand what their idea is of an event or what it could be. Um, so yeah, that's generally, and he's very transparent. I think that's the other thing. He's not going to be the yes man to the group. He's not just going to say yes to every single thing that we want in the world. He's going to, as Allison said, say, you may want to change it.
Yeah.
But it's good to have, kind of a, kind of that outside counsel, we'll just call it, to
Oh yeah.
really help steer the event in a way that it works for you, but it also allows both you all to execute your vision, but it also allows, the event producer and Richard to stretch his creative muscles a little bit too. And that's kind of where the symphony and the dance comes in, is that you all get something wonderful and magical out of it in the end. And there's two things that you both brought up, and I want to dive into theme first because that's the one you both brought up. So every year your themes are just they're wildly fun. Like I would have never guessed, like last year when I got the photos, like they did a disco theme. Like it was just like, okay, I want to hear like we need to understand the thought process of how you all decide themes. So talk a little bit about this year's theme and the process in deciding it.
Sure. Um, so in truth, we started off with a very different theme than where we are at now.
Mhm.
Originally, our opera ball theme was going to be themed basically everything Lone Star. Um, and because we were going to be honoring Harlan and Diane Stein, who are two of our absolute favorite HGO family members and supporters. They live out in Fredericksburg. They have a beautiful, beautiful ranch. And so we just wanted to honor that and where they were at. And then we had wonderful Margaret Alkeck Williams come on as our chair. And Margaret is very particular with her tastes. And in our conversations with her, we kind of quickly realized that we were going to need to pivot to make sure that everybody was going to be happy and excited and thrilled to be a part of this vision. And so we ended up pivoting to a kind of the theme is love is in the air because we wanted to build on the season's theme of truly, madly, deeply, those themes of love. We also know that our chair really loves flowers. That's kind of her thing. And so we said, okay, how can we take each of these elements and make it something that is a little bit abstract that you can pull into all of these different themes and ideas and build on. So that's kind of where that theme came from and how we integrate our chairs and how we get to that a really exciting and new theme is really just taking all of those little bits, putting them in a pot, letting it simmer for a minute and see what comes out. I don't know if Allison wants to add anything more to that.
Well, I definitely want to hear Allison's point of view, but also, what advice would you give to someone who has to pivot their theme, comma, and stay calm? Because, that's something that can just derail, and I've seen it derail nonprofit events before, like, oh my God, I got to shift the theme. How do what advice would you give to kind of do that in kind of a calm way that makes everyone realize that it's going to be okay and it's going to be even more spectacular than we ever thought in the end?
So I'll jump in here and I'm actually going to throw some kudos to Catherine. So we had a no bad ideas meeting, and that was Catherine's idea. So it's like toss out anything that you can even think of. Like none of them are going to be shot down right now. We're just going to start talking through this. And so I think remaining calm because the event is going to take place. It's going to be fantastic. And you just have to make sure that you get the vision realigned to whatever you're deciding on the new theme. So we had a no bad ideas meeting and we just put as many options out there. And then we went to work whittling away at what they were. And so we did not end up with love is in the air at the beginning, but we had love, we had some other options, and we were trying to figure out a way to put that together. And it was truly from about like four different things. And then we kept re-saying some phrases that we were like, maybe it's this. No, that doesn't work. How about a different way? And it happened in like I don't know, 2 days, Catherine, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. It was a very quick turnaround and it was great. So, I mean, Richard Flowers was on it immediately and Margaret Alcock Williams loved the theme. The Styes are excited. Like it's good all around. And what makes it nice with when you have to pivot is that you know you're going to end up with a stronger theme than what you started with.
Yeah. And coming back to that, it's if you have to pivot and staying calm, understanding your organization and understanding what your touchstone is. So for us, we were tasked with the fact that all of our events this season need to be a little bit branded towards whatever the season theme is. And for us, that was truly madly deeply. So it's okay, we have to pick a new theme. What's our touchstone here? It's that. So how do we build off of that and go in a different direction? And that really, as long as you got that guiding light, that touchstone for whatever it is that you're going to be pivoting to, it'll be fine. It'll be great.
I love that, but what I love most is the no bad ideas meeting because all those people you mentioned, those key players, they're all icons in their own way in Houston and
Oh,
beyond.
yeah.
So to kind of go in with that and kind of knowing that it's going to be something ultimately that everyone's going to walk out of that room thrilled. And 2 days, like to me, it's like if you're meeting over the course of 2 days, it wasn't like you met for 30 minutes one day and 30 minutes the next day. I know that it was probably a process to get there, but you got everything else of it. Everyone leaves, everyone's on the same page. Richard's executing, Margaret's making phone calls, the Styes are excited to pop in. And it just really creates this just wonderful moment. So I just love the idea of a no bad ideas meeting. And that frankly should be kind of the template of what anyone does when they're trying to put an event in, because no event idea is 100% original. Everyone's drawing from inspiration that they saw somewhere else along the way, and that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. The mentality of no bad ideas definitely permeated that entirety of the 2 days. I would pop into Allison's office and I said, "What about this one?" She goes, nah, next." And then she'd pop into my office, "What if we did this?" I said, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, and I like Love is in the Air because Houston, I have always found, as someone from Austin who comes into Houston for events, Houston is always such a welcoming city. So Love is in the Air to me perfectly encapsulates kind of what that city is in a nutshell. So I just love that that's ultimately what came out of it. And one of the other things I love about going to Houston is the attire that patrons wear. And I know Richard brings it to another level because, Opera Ball is one of the few white tie optional events in the state. So, Allison, I'd love to start with you on this one. What's the secret to getting patrons? Because part of being all in with an event is how the patrons show up as well, and that they show up dressed like they want to be there and they're ready to have fun. So, what's the secret to getting these patrons to wear attire that can honor the event's theme in a tasteful, elegant, classy way?
I don't even think it's a secret. I think they want to be seen and they want to match the theme or be in honor of the theme. And so we get a lot of questions about how about this color? Or if I wear something and it's this type of a pattern, am I totally off base? And so we'll start fielding some questions pretty soon, actually. And then everyone is just off to the races. So it's not even us. They just know that they want to be seen and they want to match and they are going to bring their A game. I mean, the red carpet is so exciting to see as everyone's getting out of their cars because how they've taken the theme and what creativity and imagination they have done to put together their entire ensemble is always fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely true.
I mean, especially not to look backwards, but last year with Mirrorball, there was wonderful outfit that showed up on the red carpet where she was dressed head to toe in just these wonderful mirrored pieces and she had mirrored boots on and we said, "My God, you really went for it." And that's what's so fun to see and I'm so excited for Love is in the Air with all of the florals and it's little bit more of a springtime theme where everybody's going to really, I think, lean into color. I'm just so excited. I've always also fielded a few of those conversations, Allison, about what color should I wear, what fabrics, what,
Mhm.
what's going to clash with the room. Um, I know we've had multiple conversations with our chair about the color of her gown that she was going to be wearing, which is lovely and fun. And I think people just really want to go for it, as Allison said. I really have nothing to add there.
Well, absolutely. And, one of the other things, and I want to do a follow-up question with you, Catherine, to kind of talk about,
Yeah.
because I know some years you will honor patrons and you are this year with the Styes. So talk about, what does HGO, like, what's their selection process when you just say, okay, this year we're going to do an honoree, and what's the process in selecting who you want that honoree to be?
I'm actually going to toss this one to Allison because she is head honcho of making sure that we have a chair for all of our events. But I can tell you that honoring people at our events, especially at Opera Ball, is a rare occasion. We'll have a chair every year, but it really takes a special someone to make it to the ranks of being an honoree for us to really give them a hat tip, if you will. Um, and the styes are definitely that for us. So, Allison, I think if you want to walk us through the process of picking a chair for an event and what that is like and picking honorees.
Absolutely. So, finding a chair and identifying and asking a chair, we have such a short list, but we're constantly working on that list because sometimes there are people that let us know that they would like to chair. Not everybody wants to be a chair, but they want to be involved in the event. So, we're constantly talking with each other at the company, and that's with Corey, that's with the entire philanthropy team as they're going out and meeting with a lot of their donors too and saying, I met with this person the other day and they've mentioned they would love to be included in the ideas and the process of maybe being a chair in a couple of years. So it's very much a group effort in finding the correct chair for the year and making sure that number one, they're really available to us. And that can look differently with each ball, each event. Some chairs want to really be involved on the fundraising side. Others really, really care about all of the decor details and the minutia, and they want to be thrown into that. Or it could be about the food. And so finding who is wants to be involved in which aspect. Maybe it's all of it. But we've done it where maybe they only want to be really hyper focused on one area, and that is fine. For the honorees, though, that is different. We have not done that every year. And the styes, as Catherine mentioned, they're just incredibly near and dear to our HGO hearts. And they have been longtime supporters and big supporters of the studio, the Butler Studio. And they constantly open up their ranch for this beautiful recital for our studio singers to come. They are just incredibly giving and loving of HGO and all of our singers. And so it just felt like an appropriate time to honor them because they've been just a pillar of support over the years. And it was just a really magical moment when we had them come on as honorees, and then Margaret Alcock Williams agreed to be chair. And it just felt like a really good mix for the two.
What I loved about that answer is, you answer multiple questions in one answer, and I always love when people do that because really, you also, we're talking about, kind of with the, one thing about a great event is that you never know what you're going to expect year after year. And if you've got, chairs that are they're interested in slightly different things, it's going to have a slightly different feel, but it's still going to feel like the organization. And that kind of adds to that aura of mystery combined with the great themes. But I love that answer because to me it was that's the hallmark of a great event is you kind of explain that not every chair is right for every year, and it's okay. You don't necessarily grab someone just because they're available and that there's thought and planning with that. So I love that answer on so many levels. And, in addition to the styles and Margaret, you've got a great night coming up here. So Tell us a little bit about, and we'll start with Allison and then Catherine chime in. What can guests expect to experience at this year's Opera Ball
Oh goodness.
that you can
Don't want
share?
to give
Comment
too
that you
much
can
away.
share.
Well, red carpet entry is going to be spectacular. Is. So I think everyone can be ready to be blown away with how they're going to be received on the red carpet. Obviously, pending beautiful weather, which we've always been very lucky, knocking on all of the wood right now as we have a snow day. So the red carpet entry is going to be fantastic. We have an amazing band secured, and they are really fantastic. We have a slight surprise for some singers, and in the opera world, this is a big deal. But we're not going to say more than that right now, but we're going to have a surprise performance at the beginning of the dinner. And so if you're a big opera lover, it's going to be a really exciting evening for you. We'll just give that a little tease. And I'm going to let Catherine throw some in there as well, because I don't want to say all the things.
That we're just come expecting a lot of fun and unexpected ways to celebrate love. We are in the process of looking at kind of what activations that we want to include, and not just your typical photo booth that you see, but we are looking at potentially having somebody come in that's gonna do some haikus on the spot for you. Or maybe we're going to bring in somebody to make a cute little boutonniere to wear, or a corsage, or a little bouquet to take away that truly will all tie back to this wonderful theme. And so those are kind of little tiny things to expect. Obviously, good food. Our wonderful friends at City Kitchen are going to take care of us. They're one of our absolute favorite vendors to work with, and they're going to create a spectacular evening and make sure everybody is well fed. And we're also working on a fun signature drink that may or may not involve cotton candy. So
Oh, pink is love. Love is in the air. That's fantastic.
yeah, we're very excited. We think that it's going to be a fun evening of just loveliness around every corner is what I'm going to coin it as. It's just the surprise and delight, and not just your typical, we show up, we have dinner, we dance, and we leave. We also are going to be having a really wonderful auction. We're shifting gears a little bit this year to try and make it more wine and spirits focused. So we're really trying to get some really sought after wine and spirits that'll make people go ooh and on. It's not your typical wine and spirits that you can get at other auctions. And also wine and spirits adjacent things like a trip to Bordeaux or some other fantastical trip, like a barrel picking in Kentucky for whiskey and bourbons and things like that. So again, we're trying to keep it all within this sort of overarching theme of wine and spirits, but also adding in, some sparkles for our ball chair, who, we can't have a ball and an auction without some jewels for Miss Margaret.
That is absolutely true. I think that's a requirement for entry. So
Exactly.
what I love though, what I love about the love theme and spirits, because so many wonderful times are had with friends and with people that they love over cocktails, whether they're spirits, whether they're wine.
Certainly.
So I love that you're choosing this year to really integrate those things, because a lot of people think of great times and love with spirits and with wines, and I think that's amazing. And
Absolutely. And as you said, it's not just celebrating this romantic love. You can go out with friends for a cocktail. You can meet with family members over, a holiday with your wine. And so it's just exactly as you said, it's a celebratory moment for love.
absolutely, absolutely. And I know we're coming up on time here today, but I always love asking this question at the end. And I know both of you are going to give wonderful answers. So we'll start with Catherine, and then Allison, you can have the last word. And that is, what is one thing all successful events have in common?
Oh man. All successful events, I think, have a moment of awe and wonder. Whether it's with the entrance, whether it is with an experience on a dance floor, whether it's with food. There's just a moment where you get to go, wow, that was memorable. I think that's my final answer.
That is a great answer. And you got to have wow moments to pepper in with the fun. I think that's a wonderful answer. And Allison, you get the last word.
Okay, I'm gonna say the collaboration, truly, because when you feel the theme or you feel the entire being of the event from the experience from the moment you walk on and through the food, through the venue, to the moment that you're leaving, when you can feel that connection point through every single element of the event, you leave going, I know what this event was, and you can tell everyone about it. And so there's no like, this was confusing or this element didn't really fit in. It's just like you cannot wait to tell everyone about what you felt and because it had that cohesion throughout the entire event.
Absolutely. You want your guests feeling like they just experienced something that they know was magical in the moment and that they're going to remember fondly so that they want to come back again and again. I think that is the perfect way to end this segment. So, Allison, Katherine, this was just a blast talking with you today. And I hope we can make this an annual thing. I want to talk about this event every year because it really is just one of the very best
Would
in
love
Texas.
to.
So thank you
Would
both.
love to. Thanks so much, Rob. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And Houston Grand Opera's Opera Ball 2025 will be held on April 5th, 2025 at the Wortham Theater Center in Houston, Texas. For more information, please visit houstongrandopera.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.